Okay, so you're streaming. Okay. So,
Mm.
are renewable energy systems really renewable? Sunlight is a primary source of energy, but it can only be used as a resource of heat by passive solar installations. All primary energies and energy sources need to be converted or transformed to useful energy. This is done by energy technologies that need devices to transform them into useful demands like light, heat, mechanical energy for transport, etc. Renewable energy technologies are the solutions for the reduction of greenhouse gases generated by the power sector. However, we have to take into account the complete life cycle of these technologies, like energy for production, transport, installation, maintenance, and disposal. How do they compare with the life cycle costs of fossil fuel sources? In this scenario, what should be our future course of action? Um, a very good Saturday morning to all of you. I welcome you all to our Simple Talk 17 on renewable energy systems, myths, and realities. May I request Yakshita to remove the screen? Yeah, thank you. This webinar is aimed at discussing this issue again from two ends. One, where we have the northern and the western developed nations claiming to have become almost carbon neutral with their super advanced renewable technologies and billions and trillions of investments in the green movement. And on the other hand, countries like India of the south and the east, where the majority of the population still have no access to any kind of energy. We have today a very eminent speaker, Dr. Harish Khande, CEO and founder, Silco Foundation, with long experience of working to provide viable energy solutions to the second category, the deprived sections of the society. Dr. Harish Hande is a renewable energy entrepreneur with over 24 years of grassroots experience in understanding, developing, and deploying sustainable energy solutions for the undeserved communities. Born in rural Karnataka, Harish went on to pursue his graduation from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and a PhD from University of Massachusetts. In order to catalyze deployment of sustainable solutions, Selco operates at every level of the system and at every point in the supply chain to build an ecosystem that increases accessibility, affordability, and appropriate renewable energy solutions for the poor. Today, Selco is an umbrella of organizations, each tasked to address gaps in the energy access ecosystem, namely Selco India, established in 1995, Energy Access Enterprise, Selco Foundation, established in 2010, a nonprofit for R&D, Selco Incubation Center, established in 2012 for nurturing grassroots energy enterprises, and finally, Selco Fund 2016, deploying patient capital. Harish has received many national and international awards, including the Ashden Prize 2005 and 2007, Karnataka Rajyotsava Prashasti 2011, Jayad Future Energy Prize 2018, Skoll Social Entrepreneurship Award 2018, and the Asia's prestigious Raman Magsaysay Award for 2011 for his pragmatic efforts to put solar power technology in the hands of the poor through his social enterprise, Selco, India. But before starting my conversation with Dr. Harish, I would like to show you some clips from a documentary film by Michael Moore and Jeff Gibbs released last year, The Planet of the Humans, to show the first part of the story and reinforce my proposition. Renewables are not really as renewable as they are being vouched for. I will start the film right away.
I've got a question. How long do you think we humans have?
How long does the human race have?
Ooh. Oh, wow.
I don't exactly know, but maybe soon.
I have no clue.
Years, 3 months, 5 days. It's approximate.
We're kind of like cockroaches on the planet, no matter how much.
Have you ever wondered what would happen if a single species took over an entire planet? Maybe they're cute, maybe they're clever, but lack a certain, shall we say, self-restraint? What if they go too far? What if they go way, 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 way too far? How would they know when it's their time to go?
Due to our release through factories and automobiles every year of more than 6 billion tons of carbon dioxide, our atmosphere seems to be getting warmer. This is bad. Well, it's been calculated a few degrees rise in the Earth's temperature would not always catch. And if this happens, an inland sea would fill a good portion of the Mississippi Valley. Or in weather, we're not only dealing with forces of a far greater variety than even the atomic physicist encounters, but with life itself.
That was 1958. We've known about the dangers of climate change for 6 decades. Back then, there was so much air pollution that would actually block out the sun. There was first caught on fire. Forget throwing plastic bottles into the water. We tossed our cars in there. We also knew someday we'd run out of oil.
For millions of Americans, this may be the worst weekend they've ever faced for finding gasoline to give them the automobile freedom they take as their due.
I never doubted humans would find a better way, and I wanted to be part of it. A scientist sounded the alarm, and the modern environmental movement was born.
Unless we do bring these chemicals under better control, we are certainly headed for disaster.
Students all across the country organized the first Earth Day.
At this point in time, it's very, very fashionable to talk about the environment, but as we proceed, we find very, very little concrete being done.
So I decided to begin following the green energy movement. What better place to check out how our renewable energy revolution is coming along than a solar festival in the Green Mountain state of Vermont, powered by 100% solar energy.
Solar.
I was having fun and got a chance to ask about getting solar panels installed.
You can keep adding, so maybe every time you get a tax return, buy another solar panel.
Then a little rain began to fall. My cameraman noticed some commotion behind the stage.
The principles of solar energy primarily. You need to bring chemical stuff in because we want to make sure we have stuff out. Kill our fancy fluids that we want to send.
But the biofuel generator wasn't enough, so they wound up plugging into the electrical grid that we all use.
The other inverter operating, it's actually pulling power into the grid, charging the batteries.
Green was finally ramping up, and everyone wanted to be part of it. President Obama brought in environmental activist Van Jones from the Apollo Alliance with shovel-ready projects.
They've got to put up tens of thousands of wind farms. They've got to put up millions of solar panels.
Former Vice President Al Gore, who had a few years earlier released an Oscar-winning film, shared his ideas with the president.
We have the opportunity now to create jobs all across this country, in all 50 states, to repower America.
Al Gore had already encouraged billionaire airline owner Sir Richard Branson to invest big time in green energy.
Branson is pledging future profits from his airline to the tune of perhaps $3 billion. $3 billion, that's the B, to fight global warming. Is Al Gore a prophet?
I just know a prophet.
Investors came forward.
Investor Vinod Khosla, known as the father of the clean tech revolution, has poured over $1 billion of his own money into some 50 energy startups.
Major banks were eager to get involved.
By 2020, we think renewables will require $395 billion on an annual basis.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was both on the board of major environmental organizations and was leading a green energy investment group.
We build wind farms, we build solar farms. Once you build our plant, it's free energy forever.
The Sierra Club received $50 million from billionaire and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Their mission, fight coal and promote clean energy.
With the mayor's gift, here's what will happen. We'll have a large, aggressive presence in 46 states.
It's time for America to find a new energy path, one that takes us beyond coal.
And then Bill McKibben, one of the nation's leading environmentalists and author of a breakthrough book called The End of Nature, formed an organization called 350.org with the mission of igniting a global climate movement.
Can I show off my necktie for a minute? Because they made it for me yesterday. It's got that 350 on it because it's the most important number in the world.
Things were looking up, and the green energy revolution was underway.
Communications.
I am extremely grateful to be here today, and in fact, this is a chance for me to say thank you more formally. The Chevy Bolt is upstairs. We'll be able to take a look at it.
About 1,000 photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, they block.
As simple as that.
Well, here, it's coming from the building.
I mean, is it, what's their mix of power?
Oh, actually, Lansing feeds the building.
What's that?
Lansing feeds power to the building. So I don't know.
They're,
I bet they're a bit of coal. Oh, they're heavy on natural gas, aren't they?
right now the car's charging off of your grid.
Right. It would be charging off our grid, which is about 95% coal.
How long do you think it'll be whether it's solar?
All power used for these cars will be generated from wind and solar in the very near future. Will not be correct. It's largest solar array at my company, the Board of Water and Light. It's just down the street, a few miles. If you want to take a look at it. What outfit?
You can pick them up on this offer to check out their football field-sized solar array right down the street.
What we're trying to do with this kind of a tour is get a sense for what they've already done as an indication of what we could do to push the envelope even further.
We took a hard look at wind and determined that, around here, there's not any real good wind coming through all the time. That's what we liked about solar. You would get the power when you most needed it. Pass this around, look at them. They are viable. Made in Michigan, that was another good thing. Although the efficiency of these panels is only about just under 8%. The standard answer that we tell everybody is we're providing enough to meet peak requirements of 50 homes. However, for most of the people that look at it a little bit closer, we generate about 64,000 kilowatt hours a year. Our average customer uses about 6,000 kilowatt hours a year. 6,064 is just a little over 10. We can meet the energy requirements for 10 homes. Over 8.
That's all fiberglass and balsam. They're about 36,000 pounds apiece. This tower will weigh 800,000 pounds more gun. And the cell is 220,000 pounds, and the hub and rotor assembly is another 106. It's pretty substantial.
They were impressive machines. But is it possible for machines made by industrial civilization to save us from industrial civilization?
Idle 100% of the time, because if you cycle up or cycle down as demand on the wind comes through, then you actually generate a bigger carbon footprint than if you just ran it straight.
Do you ever go to things where they just go, that's not true, it doesn't matter, we're going to have a smart grid?
Doesn't make any difference. They still got to have it idling, because let's just say the wind stopped.
Right in the fan of green energy. But everywhere I encountered green energy, it wasn't what it seemed.
This is like a perpetual energy battery.
And where do you get hydrogen?
The hydrogen, that's it. Hydrogen is sourced from any hydrocarbon material. So you can
natural gas. You can get it from any petroleum or oil-based product.
I read about a zoo that was
We're not that far west of the biggest coal mines in the world as well. So bring the two together and have that whole plant.
all reliant on two things: the giant fossil fuel-based industrial agricultural system, and more fossil fuels in the form of coal. All of this in the attempt to
अरे हमें नहीं भेजनी है बना के, हमें बस ये इसकी वीडियो बना देना, मैं जो भेज रहा हूँ वीडियो भेज देना और फिर डायमेंशन कर देना बस। उसमें डायमेंशन कर देना, ठीक है, और उससे पता चल जाएगा कि इतनी बड़ी जो चौड़ी बीम है, इतनी लंबी बीम है, तो उसमें ये सरिया यूज करनी है।
लेकिन वैसे फाइनल कौन सा हुआ था उसमें? नॉट हरा वाले, सेंटर वाले नहीं होंगे। अच्छा सेकंड ऑप्शन।
That's not the reality. Currently, we're getting, in some cases, no energy from these potential options.
Journal Nature, in which he posed the question, do non-fossil energy sources actually replace fossil fuels?
Well, we implicitly assume often the substitute pushes out the thing you want to substitute for. What you find is nations that add non-fossil energy sources do not seem to see a particular suppression of fossil fuels.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, please mute yourself, you know. Your voice is
green
coming
energy
through.
is not even replacing fossil fuels.
They don't
And
even
mute
know
everyone.
that's a question.
Okay, we're in ecological hot water, but there are technological fixes. And if we're just creative enough, if we're just ingenious enough, and if we just work hard enough, we will triumph. Seeking technological fixes one after another is simply going to lead us to another level of catastrophe sooner rather than later.
We want to believe that these things are going to be available for us. So if we get a little worried and somebody comes up with a new thingy and promises that, you know, this will do it for us, we want to believe.
We're a little worried. Are we desperate to accept any idea that sounds alternative or green? Are we avoiding looking too closely because we don't want to know the answer?
That solar and wind were probably very good solutions. I mean, it wasn't really even that long ago. One of the most dangerous things right now is the illusion that alternative technologies like wind and solar are somehow different from fossil fuels. Well, I hear a lot of times that solar cells are made out of sand.
How do you
sand at all? So they use. I'll show you what. This is one of the ingredients. It's actually mined quartz. It has too many impurities. So you start with very high quality quartz and a very high quality coal, and then you put those two together into an arc furnace, and you melt them.
The quartz is then melted with coal in a large furnace at temperatures of up to 1,800 degrees.
And so you need more coal to do that. I get another coal out. That's when we melt these together, we get silicon metal, and carbon dioxide just goes up. Get rid of the carbon, you left silicon metal. This is not clean coal. No. Yeah. This is one of the facilities that's replacing the coal plant that's being shut down. This is the Sun Peak generating facility. This is the second natural gas plant that was used to replace the coal plant. Then he talks about clean energy. He's using solar cells and wind turbines.
This is the new world, 100% clean energy.
When Michael Bloomberg stands up and says cleaner energy, he's talking about natural gas.
Create cleaner energy, solar, wind, and natural gas.
In fact, the Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign actually coincides with one of the largest expansions of fossil fuel production that we've ever pulled off, most of that being natural gas.
Ozzy's assertion that renewables were not replacing fossil fuels, if true, would upend all of our assumptions about green energy and what was going to save us. Come from?
Well, you have to start with a mind.
Or what's stopping us from running the world at 100% solar and wind?
Well, intermittency is one of the major challenges.
That were flat.
Storage, you can't count on it.
If you can store the energy that's created off of things that are intermittent, like solar and wind, you can store that, and you're reducing your need for a base load.
Would adding storage like batteries increase the carbon footprint?
Yeah, absolutely. In a big way, actually, it has more energy storage gets on the grid. It has a mass scale implication.
When I looked up how much battery storage there is, it was less than 1/10 of what's needed. In a couple of years, they begin to degrade and need to be replaced a few years later. I learned that the solar panels don't last forever either.
Some solar panels are built to last only 10 years. So it's not as if you get this, like, you know, just magic free energy, right? I don't know that it's.
The power plant itself at 377 megawatts will be the largest of its kind in the world.
This will become the biggest solar plant in the world. There's some people that look out in the desert, they see miles and miles of emptiness. I see miles and miles of a gold mine.
But this next generation had a fossil fuel secret too.
This solar facility burns natural gas pretty much every morning in order to get it started up.
How long do they have to burn it for?
Hours usually. This is the incoming natural gas for the facility. This plant would work about as well without natural gas as I would without coffee in the morning. They bring permits for nitrous oxide emissions. They have to apply for carbon offset permits because they're producing carbon dioxide here, so they have to offset that. The whole thing is built using fossil fuel infrastructure, from the concrete to the steel to the mirrors to the backing on the mirrors. The sun is renewable, but the solar arrays are not.
Oh, come on.
To do this, and then you're getting benefit from it. You would have been better off just burning the fossil fuels in the first place instead of playing pretend.
Their power. There were days this past summer when the Germans were generating 80% of their power from the sun.
But Germany is still Europe's largest consumer of coal.
Aber wenn in dieser Region die meiste Kohle
Fraction of their energy actually comes from wind and solar. In fact, Germany is pushing forward with a large terminal that could import natural gas from the battery plant. He said it will power itself with wind and solar energy.
Through a combination of geothermal, wind, and solar, it will produce all the energy that it needs.
But in fact, it has lines connecting it to the same electrical grid that we're all connected to. Aluminum, which uses 8 times more energy to manufacture than steel. They use lithium, which also rely on toxic mining. And even more graphite, which is one of the rarest forms of carbon. In fact, the investors wanted to open several new graphite mines after Tesla announced the Gigafactory. Apple claims to be 100% renewable.
We never stop thinking about what's best for the planet. We now run Apple on 100% renewable energy facilities worldwide.
And they did truck a plant, but they didn't disconnect from the grid. They can't.
Duke says energy-hungry companies like Apple can never go entirely off the grid.
They're still hooked up.
If there's enough planet left. Energy and industrial civilization are one and the same. Desperate measures not to save the planet, to save our way of life.
Much too fast.
As a global community, we really have got to start dealing with the issue of population.
Population growth can
come to dominate the entire planet.
Be smart enough to voluntarily limit its own presence.
Is there any precedence for that in nature?
Wow.
we have to have our abilities to consume reined in, because we're not good at reining them in if there are seemingly unrestrained resources.
Environmental leaders only focused on the narrow solution of green technology. Is it the profit motive? And why, for most of my life, have I fallen for the illusion green energy would save us?
Or even to percent right outside the facility, these are trees.
It turns out that the biggest source of green energy in Vermont is something called biomass, burning trees to create electricity. And to think you would have to have 10 of these to replace one average coal-fired power plant, you know, it's just not going to work.
No. It takes a great deal of fossil fuels to cut down all of these trees, to truck them in, to use the big machinery to dump the wood chips everywhere. So the idea that somehow this is not anything to do with fossil fuels just doesn't make any sense. It couldn't happen without fossil fuels, in fact. groups have been for years touting facilities like this, saying that, you know, number one, it's carbon neutral, that this will actually help us fend off climate change because there are no CO2 emissions. It actually emits over 400,000 tons per year of carbon dioxide. Oh, but once we cut them, they'll grow back. They'll grow back over a period of decades to centuries. But we cut every tree in the United States for a year, you know, and then what happens when?
It's actually a solid waste incinerator that's posing as a biomass plant. The impact in this community is severe. The plant is moving. The snow at the elementary school and at the preschool is grant because it was classified as renewable.
A remarkable step indeed. We're to do our part by getting out of bed with coal companies and into bed with green companies.
Sure, that is wood chips. It's
I think I have to reshare the video. I'll just get to that.
incredibly beautiful to stand over there and see that big bunker.
Seems to have got stuck. I have to close it and do it. How do I go about it? No, but it's not running. It's just gone out. It's not running properly. The video is not running properly. It's stuck. This is here. Okay, wait. This is what. No, it's not moving. It's not moving.
I've got a question.
Okay. I'll just go to the stopped. Where is the Zoom session? Yeah, I'm extremely sorry for the
trees to
renewable, it's not carbon neutral, it's not anything that they claim to be. Yet, they got $11.5 million grant because it was classified as renewable.
A remarkable step indeed. We're to do our part by getting out of bed with coal companies and into bed with logging companies.
Consider that is wood chips. It's incredibly beautiful to stand over there and see that big bunker full of wood chips. You can put any kind of wood in, you know, oak, willow, whatever you want. Pretty much anything that burns, we can toss in there if we can chip it down to the right range.
The Detroit incinerator is known to emit horrible smells and pollutants that neighbors say make them feel sick and put their health at risk.
It's a stink. It's a horrendous stink.
Like 2025.
This year, Michigan voters have a choice.
It was all around the world. Wood chips, which is just a euphemism for trees, are being exported to Europe from America, British Columbia, Brazil, and Indonesia, wherever they can get them from. Biomass, especially when you add in biofuels, is by far the largest portion of green energy around the world, even in Germany, source of the solar miracle.
Burning biomass, any kind of combustion is something we just need to move away from.
The more trees you have, the better. There's a lot of that.
The Dogwood Alliance says maybe small biomass plants are okay. And the Sierra Club flat out states biomass can be sustainable. Which side are they really on? I thought for sure
Biomass is renewable, biomass is sustainable.
And I'm you personally have an opinion about whether we should burn trees?
No, I don't have an opinion on that. I like fire.
One of my biggest concerns as an environmentalist is we're trying to burn trees. So there are tree burning power plants. Are you aware of the problems with biomass or biofuels?
Yeah, I'm not as aware of that as I could be or should be.
Looking at a documentary in Michigan, where I live, where I'm from, there's large plants that burn trees for energy and pretty much whole trees chopped up. Do you have a thought about whether that should be part of green energy or not?
Well, the great thing about green energy is you don't have to pick a favorite.
Jeff Gibbs. Oh, hello. My biggest concern is that in Germany, for instance, they're moving towards solar and wind, but 60% of their actual energy is coming from biomass. 60% of renewable energy. Burning trees for energy? I don't know the details. What Germany's really doing is a lot of sun. Biomass is a non-starter. Not what they are willing to reject biomass and biofuels.
So we are talking about the old oil economy trying to tame itself now to another raw material, the green plant. The only reason corn and soya is being planted for biofuel in this country is the subsidies make it profitable. I think the big crisis of our time is our minds have been manipulated to give power to illusions. We shifted to measuring growth, not in terms of how life is enriched, but in terms of how life is destroyed.
Her honesty was refreshing. But as for the rest of them, I wondered, what are they hiding? And why are they hiding it? Is it their ignorance? Or is it something else? What if they themselves had become misguided? What if they'd made some kind of deal they shouldn't have made? And then or spread the story equals or saved. It's because billionaires, bankers, and corporations profit from it. And the reason we're not talking about overpopulation, that would be bad for business, especially the cancerous form of greed.
Today, Bloomberg Philanthropies is making, I'm happy to announce, a new investment of $30 million in the Beyond Coal campaign. We have more, I'm glad to.
One of them was Jeremy Grantham, billionaire, world's leading timber investment advisor. They were not investing in trees to turn them into nature preserves, which might answer another riddle. Why is this name redacted on the Sierra Club's tax return? Would they be embarrassed to take $3 million from a man who made his living selling the forests of the world? Bloomberg bringing a timber investment billionaire to the party was no coincidence. Bloomberg sponsored a UN climate session to discuss ramping up biomass and biofuels around the world. Billionaires were in love with the idea of turning what was left of nature into green profits. Remember Tesla hoping to profit from?
Nature takes 1 million years to produce our crude oil. Here can produce it in seconds.
The company took over this old paper mill where logs are picked up by a giant claw, dropped into a shredder, and pulverized into wood chips. Clean gasoline.
Green gasoline.
There must be a downside.
There is no downside.
Who is particularly in love with turning forests into profits.
Has everybody got enough coffee? You might want to get some more.
Meet David Blood, former CEO of asset management for Goldman Sachs. How much money did Mr. Blood believe should be invested in green energy?
A natural alignment for something in the order of $40 to $50 trillion worth of capital.
$40 to $50 trillion. And who was going to help the man from Goldman Sachs? Help him raise that astronomical amount of money?
Gentlemen, some of you may recognize and know Bill McKibben. It's entirely dependent on the crusade.
On a global crusade for what?
Commit to divesting from fossil fuels. We can't justify investing our money in companies that are basically running Genesis backward.
So when you divest from fossil fuels and invest in green funds, what are you investing in? I took a deep dive into Securities and Exchange Commission filings to find out. For instance, in the Green Century funds recommended by 350.org and Bill McKibben, I found less than 1% solar and wind and 99% things like mining, oil and gas infrastructure companies, including a tar sands exploiter, McDonald's, one of the companies driving meat consumption across the planet, Archer Daniels Midland, one of the world's largest producers of biofuel, Coca-Cola, the largest creator of logging and paper companies, including one that brags about biomass burning, and banks, lots of banks, including BlackRock, the largest financer of deforestation on Earth.
The business.
Al Gore and David Blood partnered to form a company called Blood and Gore. Oh, scratch that. Investment management. And within this fund, Blood and Gore designated a special investment category targeting $650 million of biomass and biofuels. Funny thing was, they partnered before Al Gore's film came out.
On one side, we have gold bars. Don't they look good? I'd just like to have some of those gold bars. On the other side of the scales, the entire planet. If we do the right thing, then we're going to create a lot of wealth.
And when it came time for Al Gore to choose between the entire planet and getting him some of them gold bars, what choice did he make? Here's Al Gore earning his keep by pretending to care about the rainforest while lobbying Congress on behalf of the sugarcane ethanol industry.
What's been going on there is really very troubling.
And with plant, which makes cutting more efficient. Environmentalists blame the seemingly endless sugarcane fields for air and water pollution on an epic scale.
I believe that liquid fuels, chemicals are eventually going to have.
Assisting those with the profit motive, but collaborating with them. The Nature Conservancy is now the Logging Conservancy.
We will capture most important pieces biological, and it will be another large.
Concerned Scientists has become the Union of Concerned Salesmen, having taken millions not for science, but to create markets for electric cars. The Sierra Club sells electric cars and solar panels right from their website. That's partnered with ExxonMobil to bring you the good news about biofuels.com, which claims to be the largest single source of environmental news, was founded and funded by Georgia Pacific, a logging company. In fact, they are neighbors. Georgia Pacific is owned by our friends, the Koch brothers, who are likely the largest recipient of green energy biomass subsidies in the United States. Environmentalism and capitalism is now complete, but maybe it's always been complete.
How is 350.org?
Million oil.
Your take on that, about $100 million pre-tax from a country that bases its wealth on fossil fuels. Isn't there a bit of hypocrisy in that?
Well, I get the criticism. I just disagree with it. I'm proud of the transaction.
You could for sustainable choice.
What's sustainable about it?
Because backed by fossil fuel money.
I get it. I get it. I get it.
And so, if you got yourself an environmental movement and environmental leaders, why not buy the holy day itself?
Happy Earth Day! To jump up on the stage and create a habitable country, a habitable planet that we can all enjoy. Are you that generation? I need to thank Building Energy, which provided so much solar power to this that we powered the entire event with solar energy.
Thing that we normally don't try and think about. But by not thinking about it, it stands a good chance of doing us in. I truly believe that the path to change comes from transformation. There is a way out of this. We humans must accept that infinite growth on a finite planet is suicide. We must accept that our human presence is already far beyond sustainability and all that that implies. We must take control of our environmental movement and our future from billionaires and their permanent war on planet Earth. They are not our friends. Less must be the new more. And instead of climate change, we must at long last accept that it's not the carbon dioxide molecule destroying the planet. It's us.
Okay, so that was the story of capitalism taking over environmentalism. Green makes good business sense, a slogan by the World Green Building Council. Now let's hear from Dr. Harish, an energy engineer, about the other part of the story. Yeah, so Mr. Harish.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am, for inviting me, and thanks to all the participants. It's a great honor. Thank you for inviting. So yes, I mean there are all those. I mean I think we've had enough stories around the world. We know with COVID-19 as well as the environmental disasters that's happening in terms of drought, in terms of floods. I think it's high time we actually spoke about actions. Analysis will keep happening. Papers will be will be written, criticisms will happen, protests will happen, activists will survive, monies will come in, capitalism will happen. But the question
Yes.
is, it's high time we told the
So we are
youngsters
really
there are
looking
solutions.
forward.
So I would say
Yes.
I would stick to the solutions to the youngsters, and we have 1.3 billion people in this country, and we have 3 more billion people who are poor in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, who directly take the brunt of climate in terms of droughts, in terms of floods. I think what are the solutions are we doing to them? For example, we might, yes, 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, Paris agreements, yes, happen. I think we also need to create a cadre of solution providers. What is a solution that we would require for a blacksmith? What would be the solution for a silk weaver or a swing seamstress in Assam or in Togo or Mali or in Madhya Pradesh? There are droughts. Yes, we have droughts. But just by saying that we are droughts, we're not going to help. Where are we coming up with solutions? How do you inspire the next generation that there are solutions out there and we need to go and replicate those solutions? How do we look at, we might say, yes, water tables are depleting. Agreed. But what do we do about it? See, it's like typically of us, we keep complaining, oh, the roads are not fine. But if you are the IS officer or if you were a youngster, what solutions would you think? I think, see, what's happened today is most of the money is unfortunately in consultancy and writing reports, analysis, academic analysis, papers, but there is hardly any money in innovation and hardly in implementation. Until we do not create risk capital and ask the youngsters to go and fail, go and experiment, we can keep talking about the climate. We can keep producing documentaries that Michael has produced right now. But Michael is great in terms of providing what should not be done, but Michael is never great about what can be done. So it's easy to be a critic one way or the other. Let us protest by showing solutions and then showing that, okay, boss, and a country like ours, which has enormous potential to solve solutions, whether it's rural Manipur, Orissa, Jharkhand, but those stories never come out. Sadly so, because the people who do it, who are extremely inspirational, unfortunately don't speak the language of English and will never be celebrated. And that until we do not break the casteism in our own thought process, that only we, the so-called English speakers, can come up with solutions, design, etc. I think we need to be humble enough to break those barriers and inspire the youngsters of our country. If there are floods in Assam, what type of solutions would the housing architect actually happen in upper parts of Assam that then could be replicated in the aftermath of typhoons in the Philippines? If I have to go to rural Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, where every 30 minutes that's a suicide because of drought, what are the solutions or plan B that would be effectively give to the farmers who are in those regions, or the cotton picking farmers up in North Gulbarga? What is plan B for their families? Let's create those plan B. What are the alternates of farming mechanisms? What are the alternates of what you call it as agriculture? What is the alternates that they can actually do using the existing application, existing water that is there, existing crop patterns, linkages that needs to do so that they can actually sell their produce. Those solutions never come out, unfortunately. And no, I haven't seen any academic institution research and actually implement it. And with 70% of our country, which is agri-based, but there's not a single institution, ma'am, that produces farmers. It's the only profession where there is no institution that produces farmers. We have agri universities creating PhDs, but none of the PhDs have actually done farming, but then become experts or telling farmers what to do. Can you imagine if an IT expert can go and tell Nandan and Rohini, what do you have to do? They will tell you, get out. But unfortunately, You and me will do a PhD on sugarcane. We will be called experts of sugarcane. A farmer doing 40 years of sugarcane will never be called an expert because he or she does not have a PhD. He will be sitting on the floor and trying to listen to us, what we experts are going to tell him what sugarcane has to be done. So I think until we do not break the racism and casteism of education, and then we truly understand own the problem, we always go with a solution and try to fit a problem to it. No, we never own the problem. And until we start owning the problem of what the sugarcane farmer has, not treat him as a beneficiary, but treat him as a partner. Treat the blacksmith person as a partner. Treat the silk weaver as a partner, and start innovating technology, building designs, business models, market linkages, where the poor becomes owners, poor becomes asset creators, and that's where innovations happen, and that's where sustainability will be driven. The COVID-19 has clearly opened the fissures between the have and the have-nots. The COVID-19 has also brought to front the disparities that exist between the rich and the poor. The COVID-19 has also broken apart the safety nets that the poor have had over the years. And now this is the time for us to look at the other crises. COVID-19 is just a trailer to the crisis of climate. And I think both, the heaviest burden or the brunt is always felt by the poor. Always. I mean, it's no two choice about it, whether it's India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Afghanistan to South America, the poor are bearing the brunt. And I think we need to relook at what needs to happen, what are the solutions that needs to happen, and create 100 kilometers to 200 kilometers of bubbles in different parts of the country. And those become the center of innovation. Those become the center of decentralization. Those become the centers of production of power. Then what you do is democratize health, democratize energy, democratize livelihoods, and that's where you give the power to the people. And DRE, unfortunately, when people talk about solar is just a catalyst. Solar is not the end to the means. Solar panel is not the critical point. It's a better design of a home. It's like, why should I put solar and during daytime? I just don't understand. That means the building is poorly designed, Baba. And no, I have solar. Just because you have solar, can I do 20 air conditioners? Oh, I'm sustainable. I'm using solar power. That's not what solar power is about. Solar power is just an addition catalyst that actually makes the holistic what it is. Like, for example, solar water pump. Solar water pump is, if the way it is, it's one of the most environmentally disastrous implementation of technology. You put solar water pump, you have no respect for water. Because it's so-called free, you put the solar panel on, you put it during the daytime, and the water is flooding. You have no respect for water, right? The combination is about solar water pump. And the drip irrigation, the cropping pattern, everything together is what a holistic solution is. It's not about solar. Same thing, building design, right? For example, a pottery makers. It should be designed just like as you would design a factory. Where should the pottery maker's pot be? Where should the mud be? Where should the pug mill be? And we need to design those. And Jasim sir is here, and I think who's been a pioneer in the whole design factor. And how do we replicate the process of what he has done? It's not about, again, solar martira. Solar is again a technology, Baba. It's first, let's look at the design. Same thing, when I designed solar for a sewing machine, solar is expensive, but nobody complains the sewing machine was inefficiently designed, right? If sewing machine was efficient, I would have had less solar to do it, right? So I think it's a combination, what we neutralize climate, I mean, the water utilization of water, cropping patterns. Why should I have in Mandya sugarcane, for example, where I would, then we fight with Tamil Nadu about Kaveri water, but that's where you create a wrong subsidies of sugarcane subsidies. You have forced farmers to actually produce sugarcane in a water scarce area, and then we fight about it. I think there has to be a holistic way of system design. And how do we teach kids today? When we go to engineering schools, are you or a management school, I'm an expert in finance. I'm a mechanical engineer. Does a tomato vendor tomorrow when the tomato goes up high, will she sit at home and say, no, I'm a tomato seller, I'm an expert, I will not sell anything else? Her 3 kids will be starving to death. She's a solution. She will sell potatoes. But I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm sorry, I cannot solve that. As we have become more and more, our education has actually reduced the learning, and we have confused between certificates and education and learning completely. I mean, as we say, it's a completely and we have given importance to certificates. You might come from any school. I mean, as I think, I'm a graduate of IIT, as you said, because 300 million Indian kids did not write the exam. If they had written the exam, I would not have gone into that school, pure and straight and simple. Right. It's like running a 100-meter race. I'm at 50 meters and say I won the race and I clap about it. Right. So the question is, how do we create a society that is equal, that gives equal platform for every kid to survive and succeed and flourish? And the beauty of technologies like solar is that it democratizes the platform that among the 600 million kids and people that we have in our country, how do we find the Ramanujans? How do we find the architects? How do we find because we confuse between intellectual poverty and financial poverty. We believe that people who are financially poor cannot intellectually think. And that racism and casteism in a country like ours, as Jasim said, that who gets the money? It's a PowerPoint, Excel and Word. The non-English speakers have no chance. And we say, boss, the brilliant presentation, brilliant thing. The vernacular speaker crowd has no chance. Right? And you look at a country like ours, not a single corporate is a non-English speaker. While in China, Italy, France, everywhere you have it. Where is it? Why can't a Hindi speaker become a head of an organization? Does he or she have the capability to manage 1,000 people? No, you have to know English. So the question is, we have used language as another barrier. And the PhD is another barrier, because PhD we do because we are confused that time what to do for 4-5 years. And we go and get a degree. And then we are all called doctorates, right? We knew that because we had no choice. I had my parents were around, so I could be confused 5 years. So whenever people say I'm doctorate, I knew you are also confused for 5 more years. Right? So don't don't put your degree. It's like this degrees and that it's all man-made in many ways. Man. So to the youngsters, I tell you, go and take a train from Dhanbad to Calcutta unreserved. Find out start owning the problems of the country. Then you will come up with solutions. Don't waste your time on Twitter and Facebooks and internet, and start learning what, by the time you go from your college back to your house, you have 150 problems. And what we do is, we are classically being Indians. We always want others to solve it. Complain, government madbek, id madbek, where about us? Tell me 5 solutions. Then everybody steps back. So I think, ma'am, true sustainability will come in when we start owning the problem and start creating those solutions where we start celebrating failures in our country. And how do you stop in terms of fail? Fail is not a bad word. Let's fail. Youngsters, please jump it. Don't be in a competitive spirit of competition. Is compete against the earth. Don't compete against another. You got 96, somebody get 97, who cares? I mean, I really don't care where you got 1 mark extra through marks. I would rather go to the person who got 32. He might be more useful than you getting 96. I'm sorry. Because that guy would be more innovative than you getting 97, because I can also do, we don't want to produce Xerox machines in our country, but we want to produce thinkers. And then every kid has the ability to do that. And sustainability is part of that thinking process. I mean, question, I can keep speaking, but the question is, it's about pushing youngsters that sustainability in the future of the country is in your hands. And we might say, 90%, please don't listen to me or anybody else, but it's about go and jump into the well and start creating solutions for this country.
Yeah. So actually you have really truly inspiring. Yeah, Jasim sir. Hello, sir.
Very well said. Very clarified.
Welcome to you.
Naresh,
yes.
You really opened an education system. I wish it can go on and do that. Please be with us. Do it.
No, thanks,
Yes.
Joseph. A long
Yeah,
time
yeah.
visited your
So
office.
actually,
I hope I don't know whether you remember. But
oh, really? Oh, to Jasim sir. Okay.
yes, yes,
Okay,
Joseph.
okay.
Good
Okay,
memories.
okay. So,
Worth it, sir.
yeah.
It's worth.
Now, Jasim sir has been my mentor, though I've never worked for him or worked with him. But I look forward to him always, the way he crusades for these kind of things.
No,
So
no,
he has
one
been
of the
my
first people who pushed in the concept of design. And if people don't remember that, I'm sad because he's a person who pushed design thinking in terms of buildings and everything else.
Mm. Okay. Great. So you actually covered little bit of not quite a bit of things. So which I wanted to hear from you as a rebuttal to what the movie actually said, and that's very nicely you have actually put it, that those solutions are not our solutions, and we have to own the problem and find solutions for that. And in a country like ours, where still how many more 650 millions you said, us how many billions still don't have access to electricity?
Not
So
access to
something like that, a
electricity.
very large number. I think two-third.
It's more, I mean, without looking at
Two-third.
electricity, it's a question of
Yeah,
people in
yeah,
poverty and how to use energy to
yes,
catalyze
yes,
them to go
yes,
forward.
yeah.
We don't
So
need
actually
24/7.
Yes. So we would like to, but know definitely, and hear from you and guidance from you as to how you have gone about it in your Selco Foundation. And we would like to know a few, incidences and how you inspired the youth or the other people to get into your organization. How does it work so that others can actually also follow tomorrow? Yeah.
No, ma'am. It's a way. I mean, nothing. People think that we have a lot of strategy. We have no strategy. We basically don't look at resumes. We basically what we do is, do you have the common sense and passion to solve a problem? And you start treating every individual, whether it's a driver, not a driver, whether it is all as equals and potential to be your partner one way or the other. So my biggest barrier, for example, ma'am, is always the middle class and above middle class. When the kids come in, and the parents are one of the biggest barriers, saying that, oh, if they join Selco, will they get married, or will they get salaries and high because their cousins are in Infosys and etc. etc. I think, see, we always want Gandhiji, Shivaji, everybody has to be born on neighbor's house, but not your own house. So I think it is what is my biggest challenge. And more people, in a sense, some people do, I mean, like, for example, some statements really make me, like when Indra Nui just now retired and said, now I want to do something useful with my life. So what was she doing? Wasting the last 35 years of her life. So my question is, what do you mean now I want to do something useful for my life? I mean, I don't know. So what were you doing which was not useful? Or how do you defend then your 35? Then we have to do the patchwork of what you did in the last 35 years. So my question is, boss, where do these people make statements? Shouldn't be sustainability but part of your thinking from the day you are born, one way or the other? And whatever I do, I make sure that I don't harm something else in a manner to sustain myself. And if those common sense is there, then why do we actually, in fact, sometimes CSR is a contradictory. So CSR is something to negate what you did in the first place. Is that what it is? And and when people say, are you a social enterprise? No, I'm an enterprise. The others are anti-social enterprise. Why should I have a definition of a social enterprise, right? So what is it, right? I mean, so I think that's all we're telling to the youngsters who join the organization. Push the boundaries of thinking, only barrier yourself, and whatever you are able to do, are you able to look like an anthropologist who are able to see all pieces of the puzzle, that nothing that you do, in fact, affects the environment, the humans, the animals, and what are you doing solutions in a manner that everybody has inclusiveness in equity. Is there equity in whatever you do? Is whether when you're doing a blacksmith blower, or whether you're doing a paddy farmer, whether you're doing an animal fence, are you doing fence to protect the humans from animals or animals from humans? Which part of the equation are you from, right? So if we have to think, and I keep saying that, boss, forget what you learned, whatever you studied. Now bring your common sense and use those tools where you start working with, whether you're working with a street vendor, and where your street vendor is a equal partner for you in that solution that you're trying to do. It's never always when an auto rickshaw driver calls you sir, that means you have created a barrier between you and the auto rickshaw driver. Until the auto rickshaw driver does not think that you are another auto rickshaw driver, you will never be able to create a solution. Because see, what we have classically created in our countries, we have replaced the British colonization with middle class colonization of thinking that the poor, like the maid servant kid, has to be my kid's maid servant. And I think that needs to break. That needs to break. And that in terms where the poor are partners and the 600 million people, and that's why sustaining. And that's when when Selco was created. Unfortunately, so Selco is known for solar, but for us, solar was just a catalyst. But it would, are we creating X number of human beings who will then go out? And so, the two things: if there is an attack from Mars, are we going to tell, I'm a Christian, you're a Hindu, you're a casteism, you're from America, you're from India, we're going to fight together, right? And that there are two major wars from Mars, that is poverty and climate change. And everything else is man-made boundaries. Even the Climate Paris Agreement. My question is, how can I be an environmentalist and a nationalist at the same time? I don't understand. Because if I burn something, it's going to affect Indonesia. So we are all in one world. So I think we need to break the man-made barriers of thinking. And hopefully that's what we tell to the youngsters, is that everybody has the potential. And then when people say I am overworked, when people come and say I'm overworked, I said, boss, I want you to do a survey. If of the 100 street vendors, if one street vendor says I'm overworked, I'll give you one month of vacation off, right? I'm बहुत overworked. So and then Saturday chutti chahiye. I said the day the poor get Sunday holiday, Saturday chutti lagega. The question is, what is Saturday, Sunday? What the poor have come? I mean, because poor have to work 7 days because we take off. We don't give them how much have we seen a poor man jogging? Or how many have we seen that a poor man takes a vacation? That's because we don't let them do it. And so we are a non-inclusive society, which is subsidized by the poor in many ways. It's not that we subsidize the poor subsidize us of our times, our luxuries, our needs. And that's exactly why we are not able to think of sustainability. Sustainability does not mean only environmental sustainability. It means the inclusiveness in a thought process. And that's what that's in a small way, Selco is trying to push those boundaries for anybody, whether it's a VC or anybody else. When I get very irritated when they say, oh, I've had this driver for 20 years. Well, that's a slave word, right? I was owning that. What do you mean? So you want your salary every year, you want your promotion, but your driver to remain your driver for 20 years. I mean, that's hypocrisy at its best, right? So I think those are things that really pushes until we don't break those boundaries, mental boundaries, sustainability is a much far word. It's nice to be over a drink, but we are hypocrisy in many ways, yes. And how do you break those hypocrisy in the youngsters? Yes.
Okay, so
yeah. Harish, one point, Neelam. This is one thing I like about COVID. It has brought all of us together, irrespective of countries, everything together.
Exactly.
There's no national barriers, there's nothing.
No religious barriers.
No religious barriers, nothing. I said the most positive thing that has happened to the human being.
And what was happened, Jasim sir, is two things were non-essential. Religion and education.
Yes.
That was the first thing. Temples and schools were closed. They were two non-essential. What were doing? So I think so that shows, what was essential or what was not essential.
Yeah. Okay. So just to bring a little more perspective to the viewers about you talked about subsidization by the poor. And that's why we are able to have the luxuries in the urban areas. You have a very interesting calculation that you had given about those thela walas using those kerosene for 4 hours and the kind of costing that it actually has for the energy. Could you please share that with us?
No, it's very similar to, I mean, more than that, yeah, I'll tell the Thelawats, but also I'll tell you we normally say the Siddhis, who are based out of central Karnataka, for example. Siddhis, and for people who don't know where these African slaves who were brought in by the Portuguese, mostly from Mozambique and other places, and they've been settled down there. And a typical Siddhi earns 1,500 rupees a month. And out of 1,500 rupees they spend 140 rupees on kerosene, 150 rupees on kerosene, and then rest 50-60 rupees on charging their cell phone where they go to the nearby village and spend. So 200 rupees a month on kerosene and candles and cell phone charging, which is around 2,500 rupees a year. Multiplied by 5, it's around 12,500 rupees in 5 years. A solar system which lasts for 20 years costs around 10,000 rupees if financed at 14%. Now it's 12,500 rupees versus 10,000 rupees. The question is, it's not about technology. It's not about affordability. The people were spending 200 rupees. The barrier was bank finance. So you come to the banker, he says, boss, they only live in 10 feet by 10 feet. They're not going to pay for it. So we asked, what do you want? They said 100% guarantee. So what we did was we put 100% against these 30 families. And after 6 months, when we went and asked the banker, they said, excellent, they were paying. I said, if you knew this, that they were paying, what guarantee would you have taken from us? They said 20%. So we removed our 80% money out. So what we basically, that guarantee, now the banker has financed 155 households, equivalent to 1% guarantee. Now, best answer was from the Siddhis, who said that once my solar loan is done, I will take loan for a sewing machine. So the beauty of sustainable energy like solar pushes people multiple levels in the social ladder and financial ladder. So it is not about subsidization. I did not talk about the environment. I did not talk about subsidies. Basically, there was a piece of the puzzle missing, that was affordable finance. In the same case, if I put a solar powered sewing machine in a certain house, the first question that we ask is, now you're going to increase your production from 10 shirts to 14 shirts. Do you have the market to sell the extra 4 shirts? Because if that market is not there, you might, solar powered sewing machine is actually a technology debt on the poor. So it's not, then we'll say it's a failure or solar is failed. No, we need to train and sell well. If, for example, Jasim sir also, we did a remodification of a roti rolling machine, okay, in North Karnataka, where instead of doing 500 rotis, now they do 1,000 rotis at a home. So they started selling to restaurants. But one lady was clever. What she went and did was she went and negotiated with the printer. Said, whenever you get a, whenever you get a marriage card for printing, tell me. And she would go down to the marriage hall and say, I'm going to supply rotis to you. Okay. And then so she made the printer guy her dealer. So any new marriage cards had to be printed. She would go to the family and say, do you want rotis for your marriage function? And if yes, then she would get 10% commission to the. So she bought 3 roti rolling machines of 70,000 rupees each, right? 210,000 rupees for a person who was earning less than 5,000 rupees. So the enormous environmental, the potential of a rural, it's a solar powered roti mill. Did we make a big halla bulla of solar? No. It is automatically, it became an environmental friendly solution, which increased the incomes of the poor and an added benefit to the climate. So so the economics of solar or anything else. For example, today, when you look at airports or roads, airports and roads are subsidized for us. They never make money ever, because we take the airport and we fly. That increases the GDP of the country. But when it comes to the poor, we never look at those assets like cold storage systems or large rice mills need to be financed very similarly that the airports and roads are financed. We as middle class and upper class get 6% subsidy in our country. The poor in the country get 2%. The papers always mention their subsidies, but not our subsidies. So we are more subsidized than the poor. Let's be very clear. So I think that's where we need to flip the equation, that if you really want to get the poverty out of the question, how do, and that's what we push for, ma'am, is like, how do you look at asset-based financing for the poor and use sustainable energy as a centerpiece? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, that's really, that was what was really an exciting part of it, because unless and until there's a systemic thinking as to, and anything that we use is to be for some kind of a problem to find solutions, we will never be able to achieve what we are planning to achieve. There's one more this thing about this decentralization that you have talked about, and I think solar is one of the best examples that where it can be actually achieved, and you have done so in several houses. There's something, since also you are an energy engineer, the transmission of energy. I mean, I read in a book called The Solar Economy that for every unit of energy that comes to our house, 99 units are actually lost one way or the other, and the major part in transmission. And so this decentralization of energy, which is everyone says solar is expensive or something like that, is because of the subsidization of the energy, which is actually we are not really paying what we should be paying. That it makes the whole thing affordable for us, the normal energy that is coming to our houses. Could you share your views on that?
Yeah, see, everything just like, I mean, work from home that people talk about, I think we should produce from home. The issue today is everything has to be localized, and the beauty of decentralized solar, it helps you democratize everything else. So I need today 2 units, I put 2 panels. I need tomorrow 4 units, I put 4. I think the whole centralization, unfortunately, what happens is it's not leading to economies of scale that people keep talking about. What it actually does is it basically centralizes power. True, I mean, not the power of electricity, power of it does not democratize it power. So that is where I think the issue in what you in the videos that you saw, the Koch brothers, for example, who funded a lot of the utilities in Florida, in fact put taxes in solar in Florida so that rooftop solar cannot come in because they control the utilities. So the issue is that is where the Koch brothers came in. So but the way it was pushed here was very interesting, that Koch brothers were kind of they in fact destroyed the decentralization in United States, and especially in the states of Florida. And the way actually they produced Dennis Hayes, and if you followed somebody, Dennis Hayes' life in 1970 when he created the Earth Day movement, and then April 22nd, 1970, when Jasim said he had more crowd than Nixon on that day. And Nixon then said, why his, I mean, Dennis fortunate had three years came to us, and we went to Puttur together, wanted to see how it can decentralize. He actually, if you Google, I will actually send you Jasim, so you'd be interested. He runs something like the Bullet Center, which is supposed to be the world's most environmental friendly building. It would be an interesting conversation between him, you, and Dennis. He runs the Bullet Center, and which is architecturally extremely well designed in terms of environment, water, recycling, and everything else. So, but the way it's been portrayed was very, knowing Dennis from outside. But coming back, DRE, this transmission, and see, previously when the whole fight between Edison and Tesla during the AC versus DC, and then we needed long transmission lines because the hydropower was somewhere else, and we need to do, then we found coal as a source, then coal, and can we create coal power plants where the coal is there rather than transporting coal, and as transportation increase. So we are nothing wrong with every there is an every evolution, like a typewriter was an evolution to iPad. There's an evolution to coal, to everything else. Now what we need to say that was, yes, those were great. Grid was great at that point of time. Now, how do we restructure to decentralization? Because we need, the population has grown. Our environment is not able to deal with this, because every Indian, if it aspires to be an average American, we need 9 Earths. And every Indian and Chinese want to aspire as, even as a European, we need 5 Earths. And I'm sure we don't have 5 or 9 Earths. And so we somehow have to manage with one that we have. And I think one is, yes, the poor will increase their consumption, while the West will have no choice but to decrease the invention. So, you know, who has taken the most advanced step of climate change is the US military. They have actually moved their installations from the coast way inside, knowing that those coasts will be taken away by climate change. So they are much more advanced. I mean, whatever. So the question is, we have to think about whether Shah Rukh Khan's house will be there in 20 years. It's right on the edge of Mumbai. The point is, we have to come up with solutions, and this is a country that can actually show. And these, I mean, centralized, just like telephones broke away and with democratizes. Now what, it's more than a phone everybody sends. I mean, simple thing like photograph, right? We ask people, how many generations old do you have a photograph? That will also show how wealthy you came in from. If somebody said, I know photograph, then you know you're very poor, because poor are the people who never had history of photographs, right? Now, I think DRE pushes for more democratization and in the hands of the poor man. So transmission and distribution line, Karnataka has 26%, Manipur has 27, 28, 30%. And so it's a matter of time that it's not against that. It's just like type. I'm not against a typewriter. They had, and now we have to move on with the newer ways of sustainability and technology.
Actually, I was going through the questions. What I think all of them have been actually answered. Some by the clipping that I had put it, and some by the answers and this thing that you've already given. They were all about all these things that we talked about, storage devices and how to go about it, and about the buildings, and then the transportation and transmission costs and of electrical energy. So most of them, there's one has subsidies and freebies really helped rural and agri sector in specific renewable energy systems have come long way since a decade. Yet why aren't they affordable to common man? This question, if you can, it's an independent farmer who is asking
No,
this
see,
question.
so no, my question is, I was saying, I was brought up in Rourkela steel plant. My father never had to pay electricity bill. I went to IIT, which was taxpayers. I went to US on a scholarship. So I'm a product of subsidiary standing in front of you, right? And then I will say market economics, and I will talk about, and a lot of all the IIT, Sundar Pichai is a hardcore product of subsidy. Arvind Kejriwal is a hardcore product of subsidy. Right. So the question is, we are all products of subsidy. We use the roads. We don't pay for the roads in Bangalore very well. We don't pay for the airports. These are all subsidies that we take about, guys. I mean, but when it comes to farmer subsidies, we all want to shout, oh, well, they are farming is the only sector where the buyer decides the price, not the seller. And it's the buyer who decides the price. And seller has to just sell according to what you want. The cost, imagine a farmer has absolutely no clue how the monsoons is going to behave this year. I'm going to put my seeds. I have no idea. I don't know the water tables because somebody else is going to play around with it. The bank is going to ask me 175 questions of giving me a working capital. I have no other choice but to go to a money lender to take that bank because I have nothing else to do, right? So the subsidy that we are giving him is nothing. It is in fact not even it's not where it is supposed to go in the first place, but we made that subsidy as a huge amount. But we after getting educated, we run away from solving those problems as if somebody else is going to solve. So whoever asks these questions, I would ask anybody, when you ask a question today talking about sustainability, yourself, put in yourself, am I able to solve something in the next 1 month? And all of you who are listening can actually do 2 solutions every month. Let us not be escapists, saying that somebody else will do it. Like when people talk about garbage, first is who threw it in the first place, right? Because government is not collecting, but who threw it? Like you buy the most expensive phone with all the packaging, and then you use the phone and where did you throw the packaging in the first place, boss? So I think let us be also conscious as citizens of this country. Where are you putting your so coming the subsidies here? As we said, 6% subsidy is taken by the middle class and the rich. 2% is by the poor, because the bigger the size of your car, you're not paying road tax according to the length of the space that you're occupying on the road, right? You're paying as just like a cyclist also, right? But you don't want this, right? And so I think we need to relook at, yes, I agree that subsidies have to be relooked at in terms of how does it actually reach the poor, but there are mechanisms, and our country has brilliant infrastructure. maybe a bit of inefficient, the rural banks, the root cities and the ITIs. I think a lot of us have to jump into many of the solutions and every panchayat building, panchayat person, a government or a police has 10%, 20%, 50%, 80% are champions. But we blanket them saying that, oh, they are corrupt. Oh, they are. Boss, I will show you for every corrupt person, I will show you 9 other people who are not corrupt. But that is where, sir, we had Jasim sir and we had a police guy who came to our office to give a lecture, and he gave a brilliant thing. He said one day he caught a person crossing the red light, and he caught him and said, boss, did you see the red light? He said, I saw the red light, but I didn't see you. Okay, so the question is, we always we wear a helmet not because we will die, because the police will catch us. The question is, it's about what strictness in law. So where is India, we have made lane system, right? How many of us follow the lane system? We are so flexible from 4 lane to 150 lanes that we create. I think I'm asking the citizens to be more responsible solution rather than aur ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, aur ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಇವ್ರು ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. No, boss, where is your responsibility to come up with solutions? And subsidies, give a solution. How do we do it? Has it reached? Tell me how better would you have done it? As the centerpiece, if you are Nirmala Sitharaman or you are the finance minister of say, how would you have done it? Forget politics. Could you give me 5 other solutions? That's why I tell the youngsters when they start complaining, sir, road mein pani hai. Aur pani leak ho raha tha, how would you have given a solution? We will go to the eyes and give him 5 solutions rather than complaining the water is leaking. Like for every 100 liters of water Kaveri that comes into Bangalore, 30 liters are inefficiently leaked out. But I'm telling youngsters, can you give a solution? So how do we turn around our organization? There are young IS officers, panchayat leaders who are brilliant. Just that we don't go out and reach out to them. And somewhere we also one interesting police guy said, sir, I want to really do a solution before I get sobbled by the institution. So I want to become. So there are young guys in every sector.
I think we could hear you, for hours and hours together.
No, thank you.
Yeah. I heartily thank, I wouldn't say doctor now, because I think you don't like being called a Dr. Harish Hande.
That was a confused degree.
So I heartily thank Harish for taking out time and sharing his valuable experience with us. It was really truly inspiring. And
one request, Ma'am Jasim sir, hopefully we can meet if you are willing to meet in the next 2-3 weeks, whenever we can, sir. Please.
Please, sir, take advantage and come. I live quietly.
Sir, I will come along.
Yes, I will do that. I will do that.
Yeah, I said Thanks a lot. Pleasure. Wonderful. I'm in fact going to meet some students on Monday. I'm going to put them more on this.
I thank Professor Dr. Prem Kalra, Director, Dayalbagh Educational Institute, Deemed University, Agra, who has been silently taking the university to a value-based and ecological education hub with culture and cutting-edge technology going hand in hand. And they are the people who actually are hosting this whole series of simple talks from CGBMT. I thank architect Molly Caprihan, head of the architecture department, and architect Piyush, who is silently behind, sitting, and he is managing the technical management of the whole session. He's a faculty of the Department of Architecture for partnering us as our institutional partners and co-hosting the session. And I also thank all the participants for actively participating in the webinar with extreme enthusiasm. Actually, used to have met many more, people, Harish, when we were doing sessions on architecture and all the other things. So you will have, it was crossing 200, 270. But when talking about energy, even the last session, we could not cross even 100. I mean, that's what very interesting. And that's why I generally get the demographies of people who actually attend the session to understand who is really serious about what issue. And that is something which we always try to do. The next in our series on fire is one more aspect of global warming, and we will be sharing the dates and the other details very soon. Here I share a quote by Pope Francis on June 18, 2015, that I read in our last webinar also on achieving energy equity, and I'm repeating again. Only when the economic and social costs of using up shared environmental resources are recognized with transparency and fully borne by those who incur them can those actions be considered ethical. And as Mr. Sonam Wangchuk says, please live simply so that others can simply live. I leave you with this thought to ponder on what should be your next normal when you're using all the gadgets around you and aspire for more and more and more. Thank you once again. Stay healthy, stay safe, and have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Manohar Bhaiya.
Thank you.
Somi.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for attending the session. It's really great.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I think that's my cousin brother Manohar Bhaiya. Manohar Bhaiya, can you unmute? Manohar Bhaiya? He can't.
Manohar.
Can you?
Unmute.
He's not able to unmute yourself. He's not able to do that. Manohar Bhaiya, can you hear me? आप सुन रहे हैं मनोहर भैया?
He's not there. He's frozen himself.
Maybe his this thing signal must be frozen, I think. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I think we will meet. I'll speak to Harish and we will come and meet you one day, sometime, with Dr. Yellappa Reddy also there. So
Yes,
we
yes.
will meet, sir, sometime.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank
Bring
you.
Harish. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. You need some help, sir? You can say leave. You can just say leave, the right side bottom button. You can say leave and that should be fine.